Modern noise and Stoic silence. Today, silence is rarer than ever. Social media rewards reaction. Outrage travels faster than clarity. Noise is monetized. Stoic silence has become countercultural, and therefore powerful. The man who masters silence. A man who masters silence. Speaks less but is heard more. Reacts slower but decides better. Is underestimated. Until he acts. Silence sharpens presence. The inner quiet. Stoicism emphasizes internal silence before external silence. You cannot hold your tongue if your mind is chaotic. Inner silence precedes outer restraint. This is training. Wise silence builds authority. Authority is not volume. It is consistency. Silence allows consistency to form. Because you're no longer reacting, you are choosing. Silence is leadership. Silence in conflict. Silence in loss. Silence as legacy. Final invitation to subscribe, like, and share. Silence is not the absence of power. It is its refinement. There comes a point in a man's life when he realizes something unsettling. Most of what he has said did not make him stronger. It did not make him clearer. It did not make him more respected. It simply made him louder. Stoicism asks you to confront that truth without flinching. Because silence is not weakness. Silence is strength that no longer needs to announce itself. The final test of silence is not whether you can stay quiet when nothing is at stake. It is whether you can remain composed when you are misunderstood, you are provoked, you are challenged publicly, you are tempted to defend your image. In those moments, silence feels like loss, but often it is victory delayed. The Stoics understood that not every battle deserves words. Some battles are won by denying them oxygen. Silence is leadership. Leaders speak less not because they have less to say, but because their words carry consequence. Every sentence shapes behavior. Every statement sets precedent. Every reaction teaches others how to behave around you. Stoic leaders measured speech because they understood its ripple effect. Silence, in leadership, creates space for others to reveal themselves. And revelation is power. When silence becomes a mirror, silence forces others to confront themselves. Without your reaction, their insecurity becomes visible. Their aggression loses momentum. Their manipulation fails. This is why silence often escalates others, and why it must be paired with composure. Silence without composure is fragility. Silence with composure is dominance. The courage required to stay quiet. Make no mistake, silence requires courage. It takes courage to not explain yourself, not chase approval, not correct every misunderstanding, not respond immediately. Silence says, I am not ruled by urgency. And that message is unsettling to a world addicted to reaction. Silence in loss. One of the Stoics' most severe practices was silence in grief. Not suppression, not denial, but dignity. They believed excessive display of pain surrendered control to suffering. Silence allowed grief to be processed internally, without spectacle. Pain was honored, not performed. Silence in conflict. Conflict invites noise, accusations, defensiveness, escalation. Stoic silence does not avoid conflict. It slows it down. It forces clarity. And clarity dissolves chaos faster than argument ever could. Silence and self-respect. Here is the quiet reward of Stoic silence. You begin to respect yourself more because you no longer say things you regret. You no longer react in ways that feel beneath you. You no longer betray your own standards in the heat of the moment. Silence preserves dignity, and dignity compounds. Why silence feels like loss at first? Silence feels like loss because it removes familiar rewards, validation, attention, control. But what it removes externally, it restores internally. Peace, clarity, command. The man who no longer needs to speak. There's a stage beyond silence as discipline. It is silence as presence. At that stage, people listen when you speak. Your words are anticipated. Your reactions are watched. Because silence has made them rare. And rarity creates value. Silence is legacy. Words fade. Presence remains. The men remembered most clearly were not always the loudest. They were the ones who spoke when it mattered, stayed quiet when it didn't, acted with consistency. Their silence carried weight. Before we close, take a moment. Ask yourself honestly, where have I been speaking to soothe insecurity? Where has silence felt uncomfortable but necessary? Where would restraint restore my authority? You don't need to answer all of them today. Just one, and then practice silence there. If this episode gave you clarity instead of noise, if it steadied you instead of stimulating you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, not for constant content, for deliberate content. Each episode is built to strengthen judgment, restraint, and inner command. If silence still matters to you in a loud world, hit the like button. It helps this message reach men who value composure over reaction. And if you know someone who would benefit from fewer words and stronger presence, share this episode, not as instruction, as an example. Silence is not the absence of strength. It is strength that has learned restraint. And restraint, when chosen, is one of the most powerful forms of command a man can possess. Until the next episode, stand firm and speak only when it matters. Stoic silence. When silence is wisdom, when speech is duty, and when restraint becomes strength. The most misunderstood power. There's a reason silence unsettles people. Noise is familiar. Words feel like control. Speech gives the illusion of dominance. Silence does the opposite. Silence removes cover. Silence reveals insecurity. Silence exposes intention. And because of that, silence has always been one of the most misunderstood forms of strength in human history. Most men believe silence is weakness. Stoicism taught the opposite. Silence, when chosen, not imposed, is command. This episode is not about withdrawing from the world. It is not about avoidance. It is not about passivity. It is about knowing exactly when to speak, exactly when to remain silent, and exactly why both require discipline. If you misunderstand silence, it will cost you authority. If you master it, it will multiply your power. Before we go further, a brief invitation. If you value long-form, disciplined conversations about judgment, leadership, and inner command, subscribe to this channel. Each episode builds on the last. These ideas are designed as a structure, not entertainment. If silence, restraint, and composure still matter to you in a loud world, hit the like button. It helps this message reach men who are tired of noise. And if you know someone who speaks too much, reacts too fast, or is learning to carry authority, share this episode. Now stay with me, because silence is not absence. Silence is precision. Why the Stoics distrusted excessive speech. The Stoics lived in loud times. Politics, debate, public performance, ego disguised as rhetoric. They observe something uncomfortable. Most speech is not communication. It is self-soothing. Men speak to relieve anxiety, assert importance, fill discomfort, mask uncertainty. The Stoics considered this dangerous because unnecessary speech reveals internal disorder. Silence as self-command. The first function of silence is not external. It is internal. When you can remain silent, while provoked, while misunderstood, while challenged, while tempted to explain, you prove something to yourself. You prove that emotion does not command you. Stoic silence begins here. Restraint before expression. Why silence feels uncomfortable. Silence removes performance. When you stop speaking, you can't posture. You can't justify. You can't distract. You must sit with thought. That discomfort is precisely why silence is valuable. Most men flee it. The Stoic distinction, silence versus avoidance. Not all silence is strength. The Stoics were precise. There is silence chosen from clarity, and silence chosen from fear. One preserves dignity. The other erodes it. Stoicism demanded intentional silence, not retreat. If silence protects truth, it is strength. If silence protects cowardice, it is decay. When silence is wisdom when emotion is present but unprocessed. Information is incomplete. Ego wants recognition. The moment requires observation. Stoics believe that reaction without reflection is weakness. Silence buys time, and time sharpens judgment. Silence and power dynamics. Silence shifts power. The man who speaks less listens more. observes patterns, controls pacing. This unsettles others, because silence forces them to reveal themselves. Stoics understood this well. Why loud men are rarely strong. Volume is compensation. Men who are secure do not need to dominate space with sound. They let presence speak. Silence, combined with composure, creates gravity. Silence as a filter. Stoic silence acts as a filter. Before words leave your mouth, silence asks, is this necessary? Is this true? Is this useful? Is this governed by reason? If the answer is no, silence remains. This is discipline, not suppression. When speech becomes duty. Stoicism never glorified muteness. There are moments where silence becomes moral failure. Speech is duty when injustice is normalized. Truth is deliberately distorted. Responsibility is avoided. Order is threatened. In those moments, silence is not wisdom. It is surrender. Why Stoic speech was rare but heavy. Stoics spoke sparingly, but when they spoke, it carried weight because they did not waste words. They did not speak emotionally. They did not speak impulsively. Speech followed judgment. This made their words difficult to dismiss. The discipline of measured speech. Stoic speech was calm, direct, proportional, no exaggeration, no theatrics, no emotional leakage. This discipline preserved authority. Silence under insult. One of the hardest Stoic practices was silence under insult, not because insults were harmless, but because reacting impulsively gave power away. Stoics understood, if someone can control your mouth, they control you. Silence denies that leverage. Restraint as strength. Restraint is not inaction. It is delayed action governed by reason. Restraint allows you to choose timing, choose words, choose impact. This is strength refined.